I talked about our conversation, which is about a power struggle at the Pan-African Parliament and the position the APPN has on that issue. Gilbert, Borketey, Boyefio is joining us here via Zoom. Good morning. Welcome to GH Today.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear now. Thank you very much for joining. Let's first of all talk about, the APPN, what are you exactly about and what you do, and then we'll get into the substantive issues.
Okay, thank you very much. So the APPN simply stands for the African Parliamentary Press Network, and is a network of journalists that are reporting from our various national parliaments,
right,
sub-regional parliaments, and then the continental parliament. And the network was formed basically to promote parliamentary openness, to ensure that parliament is accountable, parliament is transparent, and parliament is inclusive, that it gets the people involved in their work. And the APPN currently is in about 28 African countries,
right,
and we are hoping to cover the entire continent in the shortest possible time.
Right. So you've raised certain issues, about a power struggle at the Pan-African Parliament and all of that. I mean, two key issues that you've raised. Can you elaborate on them for us?
So our statement highlighted on two very important issues. One has to do with the financing of the Pan-African Parliament. Over the years, the financing of the Parliament has been a major concern. In fact, as we speak now, the Parliament was not able to have their August committee meeting. The Parliament meets 4 times in a year, 2 committee meetings and 2 ordinary sessions, but the Parliament was not able to have the committee meeting in August due to financial challenges. And as we speak now, we are not so sure whether the Parliament will be able to have the second ordinary session for this year. And that is very alarming, because it means that the Parliament is not able to even meet to discharge its duties. The second issue that we raise has to do with the fact that the Parliament is not being allowed to function as a Parliament, because there are certain elements about Parliament all over the world, that Parliament is independent, and Parliament also sets out its own rules. They are masters of their own rule. But if you look at the ongoing development at the Pan-African Parliament, it looks like these two elements that is very significant, and it is something that every parliament has. The Pan-African Parliament seems not to have it. Its own rule seems to be determined by other people, and we think that that should not happen. We think that a parliament should be allowed to have their own rule, and if there are issues with regards to their own rules, they have to use their own internal mechanism to address those issues, right, and not resorting to third-party arrangement, because that is not what a parliament is.
Right. So, I mean, from where you sit, what is the best approach to dealing with the situation that we have on our hands? Because at a point it would seem as though the Pan-African Parliament, with how it is set up, is set up to fail. So moving forward, what should be the best approach to address these issues that you are raising?
First of all, the AU needs to make sure that the Parliament is well resourced. The Parliament, when they bring their budget to the AU, that budget is approved, so that the Parliament would be able to function very well, so that the committees of Parliament would be able to go out there to do oversight, so that the Parliament will become more visible and the Parliament will be more useful to us as African citizens. The second thing is that the Parliament also should be independent. If you look at the Constitutive Act that set out the Parliament, it is clearly stated there are certain things that are stated in there that are the responsibility or within the functions or the mandate of the Parliament. But the Parliament is currently not allowed to do that. For instance, the AU budget is supposed to come to the Parliament, just like our national Parliament budget that comes to the Parliament for scrutiny and approval. But at the Pan-African Parliament level, that is not happening. Though it is within their function, it is there, stated clearly. But the AU budget doesn't go through the Pan-African Parliament, and that is very worrying. It means that we've set out the institution, but we are not allowing the institution to perform as we want it to. And we are always using other means to circumvent the institution from its mandate. As we speak now, one of the issues that has resulted in this power struggle has to do with the amended rules of procedure. And let me maybe put it in context. When we talk about the rules of procedure of the Pan-African Parliament, it is equal to the standing orders of our national parliament.
Right.
And we all know that the standing orders, it's the law, it's the Bible of Parliament, and everyone has to adhere to it. And if you have issues with the standing orders, you have to deal with it within the confines of Parliament. Even if you go to the Supreme Court would always rule that you come back to Parliament and deal with the issue. I mean, there are instances in Ghana where issues within Parliament has been taken to the Supreme Court. But you will notice that the Supreme Court always refrains from trying to dictate to Parliament as to what to do within their standing orders. But we always ask Parliament to deal with the issues. But in this situation, we are saying, and let me also mention this, that the AU structure has the executive, has the legislature, and has the judiciary, right? So it's just that governance structure is just like we have it at our various countries. But in this situation, we are seeing the executives having so much influence, and it looks like they are stage managing the legislature and how the legislature should work, how the legislature should function, And so if there are issues with regards to the standing orders of the Pan-African Parliament, which is their rules of procedure, it is expected that if people are saying that this rule is inconsistent with the protocol, which is similar to the Constitution, then the matter, right, the people that are supposed to be sitting on such a matter should be the judiciary and not the executive.
Okay.
Because the judiciary, explains the law, right? But in this situation, we are having all these issues being dealt by the executives. It clearly shows that people are stage managing what is happening at the executive. So the Parliament is there in name as a Parliament, but it doesn't really have the powers and functioning of a normal Parliament, of our national Parliament. And the Pan-African Parliament is supposed to be an example for all Parliament to look up to. But in this situation, we are not seeing that happening. It looks like everything that happens at the Pan-African Parliament is being managed by the executive arm of the AU. And that is not something that should be encouraged. And that is our position. Right. That the Pan-African Parliament should be allowed to function as a parliament. The Pan-African Parliament is an independent institution, and they are masters of their own rule. So if there are issues, they should be allowed to use their own internal mechanism to address those issues than other people, trying to stage manage things. That is not what we need. And that is not the best way to build institutions on our continent.
Right, Gilbert, we'll have to leave it here, but I'm sure in the coming days we'll have more conversations on this and, the other issues that need to be raised as far as this is concerned. But I'm grateful that you've spoken to us here on GH today. Gilbert Borketey Boyefio is Country Programs Manager, Parliamentary Network Africa, and also coordinator of the African Parliamentary Press Network, speaking to us. And on that note, we're ending